It was John Quincy Adams who once said, and I quote, and I'd like you to take note of this, if your actions, these are the words of John Quincy Adams, one of the presidents of the United States. He said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Isn't that amazing? These are the words of Quincy Adams. He said, if your actions inspire other people to dream more, if your action inspires others to want to learn more and then learn more, if your action inspires others to do more than they have ever thought they could do, if your actions inspire others to become more, better than what they used to be, if your action inspires people to become a better version of themselves, John Quincy Adams said, you are a leader. And I love the words of Rosalind Carter. She once said, a leader takes a people where they want to go. But a great leader takes the people where they necessarily don't want to go, but ought to be. Isn't that amazing about you? It is from this second aspect of the concept of leadership or a leader that I want to make my departure and have our conversation today. Think about this. A leader takes the people where they want to go. That's an amazing leader. But a great leader takes a people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. Now, the implication is that this kind of a leader must be one who have seen what is possible that the people have not seen. Such a leader is visionary. Such a leader is one who has been able to tap. He's been able to tap, or she's been able to tap into possibilities that are yet to become realities. And then by means of relationships, such a leader then invites the people through the use of influence into that future that they never knew did exist and they never knew was achievable. And I know some of you watching me right now are such phenomenal leaders. And it's important for you to know that we live in a very dynamic and creative world right now. The world we live in is one of the most dynamic and demanding one ever in the history of humanity. We have never seen a century like the one we are living in right now. What the future portends, we do not know yet. But if we are to judge the future by current realities, it is indeed very indicative that everyone who occupies a leadership position must develop the capacity, the ability, must develop the potential to be relevant. It is critical for you to know that one of your most strategic tools to work with in this particular century that we find ourselves in is the ability to increase your relevance quotient. Your relevance quotient. You need to increase your capacity to be relevant in every field. Relevance must become your watchword. How relevant am I? How relevant is my business? How relevant is my leadership style? How relevant is my product? How relevant is my solution, my concept? It's all about relevance. You will lose your significance if you lose your relevance. Once you lose your relevance, you lose your significance. So I want to talk to you briefly today on how to stay relevant in a dynamic, constantly shifting and changing world. I want to talk to you briefly on how to stay relevant in a dynamic and constantly shifting world. Because that's what we find ourselves in. In this demanding world, you all know what happened with us in the last 2 years, globally speaking. This was a global disaster that we all were faced with. The COVID experience, we are still coming out of it. Countries are yet to fully recover. Companies in the United Kingdom, records have it that hundreds, if not thousands, of companies disappeared because they were not able to navigate the COVID part. They were not able to evolve. They were not able to innovate. They were not able to remain relevant. And so many of them are out of business. So we want to talk today with ourselves on the importance of staying relevant in a dynamic and changing world, because that's all a leader's got. That's all your company's got, relevance. And it's important to keep that in your mind. Once you're no longer relevant, you're no longer important. Once you're no longer relevant, your significance will be thrown out of the place, out of the environment. So relevance is very, very critical. I love the words of Aaron Levy, who once said, companies have never won. You are always either fighting for survival or fighting for relevance. Did you hear that? These are the words of Aaron Levy. He said, companies have never won. Leaders have never won. You are either fighting for survival or you are fighting for relevance. It is therefore critical for us to understand what this whole concept on relevance is all about, since that's what I'm talking to you about. Please note this. Number one, relevance is about relatability. Relevance is about being relatable. It's your relatability quotient that is being brought to bear when we talk about relevance. How relatable are you? Are you constantly relatable? How relatable is your business? How relatable are your products? So the issue about relevance is about relatability. It's not about speaking. How relatable is what you are saying to the audience for those of us in the public speaking domain? If you're a consultant, a teacher, a facilitator, whatever it is that you do, if you speak, I love talking to public speakers a lot. And one of the things you must never forget is that the world is no longer interested in what you're saying. The world is interested in how you say what you say. So relatability is one of the critical components of relevance. If you're going to be a relevant leader, you're going to be a relevant enterprise, you're going to be a relevant organization, whatever it is that you do, if you're going to remain relevant, you must remain relatable. That's very critical. Number two, relevance is about usability. I'm sure by now you know everything is about user-friendly, customer-friendly. It's all about people-friendly. So as a leader, as a business owner, whatever it is that you do, always ask yourself the question, how relatable, how relevant, how usable are our products? The things that I'm talking to the people about, how usable is it? Relevance will determine your significance. In the industry wherein you play right now, if your products, your concepts, your services and solutions, if they are not usable, it might be the reason why people will literally walk away from you, walk away from your enterprise, walk away from your giftedness, and embrace someone else, embrace a company that may not be well equipped as you are, but they are usable. They are user-friendly. So don't forget that. It's critical for us to understand that as we look at the concept of relevance, we are talking about relatability. We are talking about usability. How usable are you? And how consistently usable? It's not just about being usable today and not usable tomorrow. Remember the Kodak story? You remember in the photography industry, Kodak were the very first to come out there. But imagine what happened to Kodak. Because Kodak was unwilling to become relevant. They were not willing to create products that were usable. They got stuck. They were the creators, but they lagged behind in innovation. They were not able to innovate. And it's critical for you to understand that when we're talking about relevance, you cannot talk about relevance without innovating. Innovation must be something you constantly traffic in if you're going to be a relevant, relatable, and usable leader. If your organization is going to be usable, if it's going to be relevant, your organization must create usable products. Number 3, when it comes to being relevant, we're saying that there is connectability. Leaders and organizations that are relevant are leaders and organizations that have the capacity to connect with people consistently. The connectability quotient is very high. In high-performing organizations and amongst high-performing leaders, you find one thing about all of them: they have high connectivity quotient. They have the capacity to connect with people all the time. In fact, they invest a lot into always researching into how to consistently connect with their clients, their customers, and with the people that patronizes them. It's all about connectivity. So what is your connectability quotient like? These are some of the questions that we need to start asking ourselves as leaders. What is stopping me from connecting with my potential clients? What is stopping me from connecting with my potential customers? We may need to look inwards into you as the leader. Is there something wrong? Is there something within me as a leader that inhibits my connectivity with the people? Can I work on it? Is there something within my organization that inhibits our connectivity with the people we have the potential to reach? You may need to audit, figure out what exactly is hindering your connectivity with the people you are actually poised to reach. So one of the keys that you must never forget when it comes to looking at the concept of relevance is connectability. And that is your ability to connect with people. Number 4, it is called applicability. Applicability. Now, when it comes to applicability, we are saying that you are able as a leader to constantly provide information, products, solutions. You are able to provide services that are applicable to the people. Remember what happened during COVID. Again, that will be my reference point. How that during COVID, we could not drive our cars, so nobody could move around. So cars were not, the drop in the sales of cars was really, very, very strong. So car manufacturing companies really had a major dip in that season. All right. And then we also had the pharmaceuticals, particularly, I'm talking about the cosmetic industry. Nobody was going out for parties. So what happened? Many of these cosmetic industries were not selling because nobody will buy lipstick. Nobody will buy foundation, Mary Kay Ash, and the rest of that. And then we also have a situation whereby in the alcohol industry, those who provide alcohol, produce alcohol, also had a challenge. In the midst of that, we had organizations who began to ask themselves a question. How can we become relevant to the people now. What must we do to become relatable to the current COVID-infested world? 2, what must we do to become usable by the audience? Number 3, what must we do to connect again with them? Number 4, what kind of products can we create that will be applicable to our audience? Some of the car manufacturing companies, you know the story, how that some of them had to immediately move into creating ventilators, even the aircraft manufacturing industries. Some of the companies in the aircraft manufacturing industry moved into the production of ventilators. The cosmetic industry, we saw some of them move into creating nose masks and other stuff. The alcohol industry, we saw some of them going into sanitizers. Whilst other companies were waiting for COVID to be over, some other companies who had the capacity to increase their relevance moved into revenues they've never had before. What I'm saying is, it is critical as a leader to increase and develop your relevance quotient. That keeps you on demand all the time. That keeps you on demand all the time. And if this is going to work, listen to the words of Peter Drucker. This is what he said: the only skill that will be important in the 21st century is the skill of learning new things. Everything else will become obsolete over time. The capacity to learn new things is a very, very critical capacity to develop in this particular century that we'll find ourselves in. Let me say at this point in time that every one of us as leaders must begin to consider the possibility of increasing our abilities and capacities to, number 1, see ahead. Number 2, change ahead. Number 3, retrain yourself ahead. Number 4, step ahead. Number 5, stay ahead. All of this will help you to begin to consider how to help yourself become a relevant leader and help your organization to become a relevant organization. Well, you know, I function in a different industry, and I remember how that during the COVID era, before the COVID era, I was known in some countries, maybe about 10 countries. I was known for what I do in just about 10 countries. But just before the COVID era began, I was able to see something coming ahead. And I created a platform and began to engage the audience. And at that time, I was only engaging as much as maybe 100 people, but I knew something was coming and I just couldn't tell what it was. Barely 3 months into starting what I started, the COVID era started. And what then happened was everybody went indoor, and then people began to look for the kind of product that I was offering. Guess what? Within a space of 2 years, I had gone from being known in 10 countries and having followers and people patronizing me in just 10 countries to over 100 countries of the world. It is possible. In your industry, it is possible. My relevance level just moved to an all-time high. Today, I have trained hundreds of leaders within the last 1 year. I've trained hundreds of leaders, globally speaking. Leaders occupying strategic positions across the world. from governors to people who are involved in the government, in the houses of representative. The influence is just simply amazing. How do you increase your relevance as a leader? Number one, see ahead. Learn to see ahead. It's critical. Learn to reassess global trends. This is the secret behind Dubai's United Arab Emirates success. They constantly learn to see ahead. Dubai as a nation, as a city, Abu Dhabi and the rest of them, United Arab Emirates, one amazing nation of interest when it comes to seeing ahead. They don't allow their realities to blind them from seeing possibilities. They don't allow their actualities to hinder them from seeing their possibilities. They are not overwhelmed by their current actualities. They learn from them, get feedbacks from them, and they try to forecast global trends. What kind of aircraft will the world be needing in the next 10 years? What kind of hotels will the world be needing in the next 10 years? What kind of airports will we be needing in the next 10 years? Dubai is constantly looking forward. And that is why the United Arab Emirates is constantly ahead of most of the nations. Singapore is doing the same. Japan is doing the same in the area of technology. If you don't look ahead, you will always be behind. As a leader, if you don't always look ahead, you will always come from behind. So it's critical for you to reassess global trends. Always find time as a leader to sit down and look at what is possible, possibilities, not just actualities. Those that see ahead, go ahead. And it's critical for you as a leader to embrace such a paradigm when it comes to relevance. It is important for you to know as a leader, if you're going to see ahead, you must redefine your uniqueness. As a leader, you must learn to constantly redefine your uniqueness, your personal uniqueness, your organization's uniqueness. It is critical that you redefine your uniqueness. What makes us different? What makes us better? What makes us stand out? What do we have the potential to do that others don't have the potential to do? Redefine your uniqueness. Number two, redefine your purpose. Why do we exist? What are we here for? Constantly redefine your purpose and never forget to reclarify your mission. What are we here to do? What must we be doing daily to make a difference? And then what can we be doing in the future? What can we begin to look into in the future that we can do to make a difference? Reclarify your mission. Never fail to reprioritize your values. It is critical that you do that as a leader who wants to remain relevant. Constantly reprioritize your values. It is something every leader must do from time to time. But beyond that, I invite you now to reactivate your imagination power. I want you to sit down in your house, in your office, and I want you to imagine, just imagine, what the world will look like in the next 10 years. What kind of product will your company be offering? In the next 5 years, with global trends, with the political shifts we are seeing, with the economic shifts we're seeing, social trends, the technological disruptions we are seeing, what will the world be needing from you in the next 5 years? There is a nation in Africa called Rwanda. Rwanda they already have developed what Rwanda will be looking like in the next decade. Dubai has a vision for 2035. Let me ask you a question. What is your organization going to be looking like in the next 5 years? I was at the Jackson Maynard Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. It's an airport that constantly fascinates me. Every time I fly into Atlanta, Georgia, I get fascinated by this airport. And you know, one of the things that really impressed me about it was the fact that when I got there and I saw how humongous it was, and I've been to California Airport, I've been to other great airports around the world, but Jackson. So I asked the question. I said to them, I said, when was this airport built? And they told me when it was built, I think in the 70s or so. And I said, why would they build an airport like this? Was there a demand on Atlanta that made them to build such an airport? And you know what they said to me? They said no. They said they had anticipated that the time was going to come when Atlanta was going to become a major hub. And they said, let us build it and they will come. The people will come. And indeed, it is what we see today. Heathrow constantly is expanding. From Terminal 1 to Terminal 2 to Terminal 3 to Terminal 4 to Terminal 5. Constantly building for the future. Maybe I should ask a leader today, what product, what service, what solution, what concept are you developing today for the future that will cause you to be relevant, that will cause you to be ahead of the game? Every leader must learn to reactivate our imagination power. We must learn to reimagine new possibilities. What are the new possibilities out there? We must learn to reassess our potentials. What can I still do that I've not yet done? What can we still do that we've not yet done? This helps us to see ahead. But beyond seeing ahead, every leader must learn to change ahead of time. Leaders must learn to change ahead. Learn to change ahead of time. Reposition yourself and your team quickly. COVID will not be forever. Disruptions will not be forever. Societal, sociological changes, political, economic changes, technological changes will not be forever. So the ability to be able to reposition your team to quickly take advantage of opportunities is very critical. When the opportunity came for us, when the changes, now before the change that I was talking about in my personal space, before that happened, my equipment were minimal. I had very minimal equipment. I didn't have a studio. But I never knew why. Something just made me to say, you know what? Why don't you build a bigger place? And somehow we just embarked on a 2-year building before the COVID. And we got the building secured. We did everything. And barely 2 months into the beginning of COVID, we had moved into that property. And we had this particular space. I'm actually speaking to you from my studio. Before COVID began, all of this was set. Now the point I'm making is that kept me ahead of the game. As a leader, it is critical to reposition your team. So I gathered my team and we began to work. At some point, we knew we needed to recruit, get on board some individuals who need to be highly paid, who are more skillful. And some of those individuals are the ones who are making it possible for me to relate with you today. The point I'm making is, as leaders, we must learn to change ahead and do that quickly. Reassess your opportunities. What are the opportunities before you? Reassess them. Rediscover your needs. What do you need to tap into these opportunities? And you don't have all the time to fix those needs, meet those needs in order to tap into the opportunities before you. Reestablish your core strength. As a leader, it's critical for you to reestablish your core strength. You can only be more effective in an area where you already have competence. When seasons of opportunities come, that's not a time to start learning new things. So that was why when COVID came, we didn't have a situation whereby the automobile industry or the automobile companies or the aircraft industries that went into creating ventilators, we didn't have them trying to see how they can move into creating sanitizers. No, they just looked at their company and say, hey, we've got machines. What do we have the potential to do with the machines we already have? So it's critical that you reestablish your core strength and never fail to reestablish your priorities. In the midst of opportunities, what keeps you from drifting away is establishing your priorities. You can't say because there's opportunities everywhere, you dabble into everything. Your priorities governs your choice of engaging in opportunities or with opportunities. Re-strengthen your systems. When changes come, it is critical that your systems, personal systems, your organizational systems and structures, policies and procedures, things need to become more fluid so that you can take advantage of opportunities. Re-strengthen your systems. Re-evaluate your decision-making process. There were organizations that will have done so very well during the COVID era, but they had too much bureaucracies when it comes to decision making, and they were not able to reach any concrete decision. And by the time they were able to come to decision, opportunities were already gone. So reevaluate your decision making process. Reorganize your activities. Cut off activities that drains you of resources and brings you minimal or no return. It is critical that you reorganize your activities around your highest yielding products, services, solutions, or whatever it is. Reorganize your activities. And I want to say to every leader that cares to hear, re-audit your platforms. Re-audit your platform. Sometimes you remember what happened. I was in the United States when Toys R Us was closed, and I saw so many other stores in the United States closed, and that is happening all over the place. And I was invited recently by the CEO of an organization to come help them to audit their organization, to check what is going on. Why are they not having the kind of sales that they've desired to have? It's a multi-million in a company and all of that. And then I got to the place. On arrival, I knew where the problem was. But I still had to engage, and by engaging the staff who were there, we were able to find out that what I had thought was the problem was the problem. They were trying to sell on the wrong platform. So it was the right company, right product, wrong platform. Who do you intend to reach? Who do you intend to serve? Where can you find them? Which platform will be the best to engage them? It is critical that you are platform sensitive. Don't just see ahead, change ahead. You may need to make some internal, personal, organizational changes in order to be able to tap into the opportunities that are coming ahead of you so you can be relevant. Number 3, retrain ahead. Every leader who wants to remain relevant, every organization that wants to remain relevant, retrains. Training, training, training. Re-equip yourself and your team. Rebuild your team. You may need to, listen, you may need to bring a new team on board for the season that you are in. There are individuals who are not quick to change. And when you have a season before you that you need people who can think quickly, you may need to reassemble a team that can deliver on such a thing. So it's critical that you reassemble your team, re-envision your team. Give your team the new vision that has captured your mind. Re-envision yourself and re-envision your team. If you must retrain, you must re-envision. Training will not make sense if vision has not captured the person's sense. So I need to show you where we are going to and tell you why you need to be trained for the future that we are moving into. So it's critical that we re-envision the team. We may also have to, and we must indeed, re-audit the team's skill set. The skills of yesterday may not suffice today. We may need to check if our team needs, emotional intelligence. We may need to check if our team needs positive intelligence, social intelligence, adaptive intelligence, analytical intelligence. We may need to check what kind of skill set we currently have, and then what do we currently need in order to capture the opportunities that are now before us so we can remain relevant. Reposition your team. There may be need for restructuring. There may be need to move people in order for the organization to become a high-performing one. And as an individual, you may need to reposition yourself, retrain yourself, re-audit your skill set as a leader. Ask yourself, what kind of skill sets do I have? What kind of skill set will be needed right out there if I want to remain relevant? Re-audit your own skill set. As a leader, learn to re-envision yourself. If you must be relevant, you must capture the new vision of a possible future. Number 4, step ahead. Don't just see ahead. Don't just change ahead. Don't just retrain ahead. Step ahead. This is where it really matters. Reawaken your action potential. Most times it has been discovered so sadly that most dreamers are not doers. And it is those who do it that get it. So I want to challenge you. If you're going to remain relevant as a leader and as an organization, it is very critical that you learn to step ahead. Take the risk, make the bold move, and get ahead of others. Take the risk. Reestablish your goals, your new goals. Reestablish them. Number 2, renavigate your strategy. Which way were we going before? Will that get us to where we're going to now? Or do we need to renavigate our path so we'll be able to accomplish and achieve what we want to achieve? Reconnect with a new network. It is critical for you to know that sometimes in order for you to accomplish your greatest goal, you may need to build a new relationship with a new set of audience, individuals, stakeholders that you never had within your cycle before. So rebuild your network. And lastly, I want to say to you on that note, reactivate your execution potential. It has been commonly said that most CEOs, most leaders are very good when it comes to dreaming, envisioning, but we're very poor when it comes to execution. I wish I can talk to you about the 4 Ds of execution, but that's not for today, so that I don't take us off course. But if you're going to be a relevant leader, execution must be something you are strong at. Nobody wants to follow a talker. Everybody wants to follow a doer. If you can get things done, your influence and relevance level will rise. Presidents are being removed out of office because the people judge them of non-performance. CEOs are being thrown out of office because the organization has judged them, the board of directors have judged them of non-performance. Governors are thrown out of office because they are judged of non-performance. Companies are no longer being patronized because they don't perform. Increase your execution power so that you can increase your relevance as a leader. Don't just step ahead, stay ahead. This by far is the most challenging part for most of us who are leaders. How do you rise and keep on rising? How do you begin to become relevant and remain relevant? It is a challenge that most leaders face globally. And if you're going to remain relevant, I have a few suggestions. Number one, would you consider the possibility of reassessing global trends again, taking us back to where we started from? As a leader, if you're going to remain relevant, constantly be in tune with global trends. And I'm not saying follow trends. Don't just follow trend. You may need to set the trend. See where the world is moving towards. Be in tune with the current population density of the world. What is the current population rate of the world? The growth rate, the death rate, the birth rate. Sociologically speaking, what's going on in your community? Amongst the genders you intend to serve, what's going on? Within the industry wherein you function, it is critical that you understand trends, so reassess global trends. Number two, re-educate yourself again. When you grow the leader, you grow the organization. When the leader stops growing, the organization stops growing. The leader becomes a lead over the organization. As a leader, you must keep re-educating yourself, retraining yourself. And you must transfer that same learning culture into your organization. Number three, refuel your passion. One of the things every leader needs is passion from start to finish. Find out what recharges your passion. No matter how good your car is, if you have a Lamborghini, Mashback, or whatever it is called, Ferrari, I don't care to know what kind of car you have. Listen, if there is not, you don't have fuel in the car, you don't have gas in the car moves nowhere. No matter how well endowed the leader is, if the leader lacks passion, the leader wouldn't go further. The leader wouldn't make impact. Your relevance is strongly connected to your passion. You need to remain gritty. You can't lose your passion when you still have a journey to make. You can't lose your passion before the people you're leading. The leader's passion is an essential commodity, non-negotiable commodity when it comes to leading an organization. Lastly, re-energize your faith again. Believe you can do it. Believe you can achieve it. Believe you can make it. Believe you are significant. Believe that you are in this world to make a difference. Believe that nations will become better because of you. Believe as a leader that your presence in every organization will always be a plus. And I celebrate the fact that that is who you truly is. And I believe very strongly that I'm talking to leaders today who are going to become some of the best, the most relevant leaders in our generation.